Hey. Peter, did your girlfriend break up with you, man? What's going on?
No, because here's the actual fun thing about this, why I'm a little amped up, because guess what? I'm the one, yeah, because I do have HIV, you fucking sack of shit.
That's nice.
How's
it feel? How's it feel?
I didn't say nothing, man. I said nothing about that. No one knew that.
Right.
Oh, you go, girl. Say your piece, girl.
Guys,
Say your piece, girl.
All right.
Hey.
All you alpha males. Peter.
Look, don't be, listen, Peter, no one knew what your situation was when you came in.
We're gonna just me and Peter. All right.
I'm genuinely curious.
What are you curious about? Sorry.
I'm genuinely curious to hear how you can actually rationalize and not just kind of dance around the subject as to why you found it was pragmatic for you to increase drugs that were specifically for kind of a, I don't know, for lack of better words, a very kind of a poor community, and to, I don't know, seemingly withdraw a drug and increase it to an extent that, you know, you've done well for yourself. Congratulations on that. I have no issue with it. But most people cannot actively afford those medications. And especially for people who are in my circumstances that, hey, guess what? I'm 24 years old. I got into a bad situation. This was nothing that I did in terms of my lifestyle to gain this. And it's the reality of the situation. And I know myself, if it wasn't for health insurance and whatnot, I'd be paying over $250 million a year just to exist. So, like, taking all of that, like, what necessarily is the point? I know, and I'm a huge advocate for capitalism and whatnot, and I understand you have to have your bottom line, but really, like, where did that come from?
So I just start off by saying, I have a lot of friends who are HIV positive. In fact, my publicist is HIV positive. So
it's a relatively common thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, 1 million people in the United States have it, so it's 1 out of 300 people. So just keep in mind that, I've also made a huge amount of donations to the LGBT community, and this is a community of great friends of mine, and I just want you to understand that to start. And then with respect to the price, Daraprim was and still is one of the actually lowest priced drugs in the rare disease world, which is not something that's easy to understand, given that most people don't know a lot about pharmaceuticals, and I can't blame them. It's an esoteric field. It's definitely a field that not many people have studied. I've studied pharma my whole life, I think.
And I'm only slowly getting into it due to my current situation, so I only really know about like Gilead Laboratories and things of that nature.
I think Gilead does a pretty good job. I know they're trying to cure HIV, which is great. And I think they probably will do that in the next 10 years. So anyway, it's interesting. A lot of people don't know much about me, or my company. So my salary is $0, and my company loses money every year, every quarter, every month. And so I think people who think that, we're a greedy company don't understand the reality. Gilead makes billions of dollars a year, like $10 billion a year. My company,
but they also, through multiple services, are able to actually give away their drugs for literally $0. Yes. I'm one of those people who also, through the Gilead copay card, I get everything I need for nothing.
We give away a lot more than Gilead does. So
okay.
65% of the drug we sell is free. For them, that number is more like 10 or 20%. And obviously they, I want to say they don't need their profits, because that's a very anti-capitalist thing to say, but at some point you have kind of these windfall profits that are pretty insane. Their latest Hep C drug, for instance, is just this smorgasbord, this free-for-all of profits. We're trying to exist, we're trying to survive. The drug that we sell, Daraprim, is for toxoplasmosis. It's just one of many.
And it's a very small, that's something that I know I'm not affected by necessarily.
Yeah, only a few thousand people in the United States will ever get it. So there's probably something like 50,000 people with AIDS, and even of that, only a small percentage of them will get toxoplasmosis. So the problem with this drug is it's 70 years old and it sucks. It sucks. It's terrible. I don't know what drug you take, but if you're on any of the Gilead products, you're lucky, because Gilead made great. What's that? Atripla?
Stribild,
yeah. So So Stridewood's great. It's a 4-in-1 product, as you know. It combines, let's see, tenofovir. It combines emtricitabine. It combines
Denavir, I think, as well.
Which one?
I think it's Denavir, like tenavir, and something.
Adefovir is Viriad. Emtricitabine is the second component. Then there's the booster, Cobicistat, and then finally the fourth drug is called raltegravir, I think. So, raltegravir. So it's a great medicine you take once a day, and it keeps your HIV at bay. The problem, that's great, obviously. You know, if we still had to take Crixivan, if we still had to take, drugs from 20 years ago for HIV,
Old cocktails that destroy you.
Yeah, 12, 15 pills, etc. Well, for toxoplasmosis, it's still in that state. This drug is 70 years old, and it's I'm talking about my own product. It's a horrible, terrible drug. It needs a better 2016 version, and we actually have one. We call it TUR-009. It's still its code name. But the way this medicine is made, toxoplasmosis is a bug that we all have. Many Americans have it, 20% of all Americans. So the 144 people here, 28 people probably right now, watching this right now, have toxoplasmosis in their brain. It's a protozoan infection that's sitting in your brain, just waiting for your immune system to be compromised, and it will destroy your brain if it gets the chance. And there's one drug for it, Daraprim, and that drug is 70 years old. And there's a lot of resistance building up in the toxoplasmosis gene pool. And furthermore, the drug, Daraprim, it kills toxoplasma as fast as it kills you, which doesn't make any sense because I can make a better drug that only kills the toxoplasma. That's what 009 is.
It almost is a chemo-esque thing that just destroys it all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a nuclear bomb for all of that enzyme, no matter what organism it is. And you can narrowly make it so that it only hits the toxoplasma, and no one's ever wanted to do that because, for 70 years, no one said, let's improve this drug. And it's nonsense to me because rare diseases, HIV has been paradoxically kind of blessed in one way that so many people have it. It's obviously a curse that so many people have it too.
Well, there's enough people trying to fix it now at this point.
It's a big business, yeah. And toxoplasma is not a big business. I'm the only guy on the fucking planet that cares about it, even though it kills people every year. It kills thousands of Americans because we have to use this old piece of crap drug called Daraprim. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't afford to spend $100 million on new toxoplasma drugs, but raising the price of Daraprim, now I can. And I'm being ethical about it. I don't have a salary. I've never paid myself a dividend. I haven't gotten a dime from this. All I want to do is make a better version of this drug so Daraprim goes away and we never have to use it again. And we have a Gilead, if you will, for infections that aren't necessarily as common as HIV or Hep C. There's Chagas, there's schistosomiasis, there's cryptosporidium, there's all kinds of weird infections that nobody cares about. And you're in good shape because you've got Gilead cares for because you're one of a million people who pays them a lot.
Yeah, which they came out with round 2 of new drugs called Genvoya, and
yeah, they'll come up with a cure for you, and that's even better. But if you have schistosomiasis, nobody cares. And how would you feel like that if someone said, you know what, you're not worth it. There's not enough money for in it to save your life. That would suck. And for me, look, I will make enough money to save your life, and that's worked out for me, of course.
But my question is kind of like in the interim time. So understandably, like you have to create money to put into the research to create a more, a better drug. But like in that increase of drugs, do you not see that it kind of was able to kind of pull it out of the people's hands who necessarily needed it? I don't know if there's like a real great way to go about increasing the.
Yeah, we haven't. I've actually done this before, and so I did this with a drug called Thiola for cystinuria, and I raised the price 20x. And there's no one who doesn't think that was a great move for people with cystinuria, which at the end of the day is who we care about. To decrease access to a medicine would be so deplorable and so disgusting that I couldn't live with myself doing that. These moves increase access. I'll tell you why. So the prior owner of Daraprim was a company called Impax. The prior owner for that was called Core. The prior owner for that was called GSK. They're a big company.
Okay.
Not one of these companies ever had one employee dedicated to this drug. And Gilead has, 8,000 employees dedicated to HIV.
Yeah,
That's
all
why
the San Mateo doing their stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's why they have the copay card. That's why they have hundreds of salespeople. Salespeople aren't really salespeople. They're customer service people. They actually go to the doctors and they're basically wait on them hand and foot and say, what do you need, doctor? And so forth and so forth. So we have about 50 people around the country that make sure that doctors even know what this drug is. And by the way, that's how, as crazy as it is, doctors are busy. They don't know everything about the medicines that they're prescribing, and the company has to help them understand them legally. They can't, lie about it or something. That would be very illegal. But they kind of work within the confines of medicine to help doctors understand how to use their drugs. And you say you have a patient that's having trouble affording it. Let me make one phone call and we'll make sure we get that. I've even helped patients who couldn't get Daraprim due to the price increase. There was a guy at Mass General who was actually an illegal alien, and it was a very tricky situation because not only did the guy not have insurance, he wasn't supposed to be here, and we made sure he got it right away. And this is a life or death situation. So the fact that we can actually afford to have a very small, mind you, but a national team for the first time ever for this disease, I think it's great, and it increases access, and we've been able to afford to give more away. And if one person couldn't get our drug, because of what we did, I'd be really upset. I think, in fact, beforehand, there were probably hundreds of people who couldn't get our drug, and now there's probably tens of people who can't get our drug. I think we've improved the situation, but I've asked, the media hasn't been able to produce one person who couldn't afford our drug. Because it just wouldn't work that way. They'd call the company, or their doctor would call the company and say, what are you going to do about this? And we'd FedEx you the drug for free.
Well, I remember, first experience of mine was going to purchase the medication and all that before everything was in line with the programs and whatnot. It was just $3,600 a month, and then a week later was $0.
Yep.
And it's in that sense. So yeah, there's where there's a will, there's a way, and there's always some sort of a system.
Yeah,
I was curious because it seemed like such a the fuck. Like I know I don't have to take this, but
this drug is still cheaper. My drug's still cheaper than Stribold, and
easily. I mean, even PrEP, that's like $900 a pill or something. Technically, if you do it that way.
But it's funny because our drug, 65% of it is free, whereas for Stribold and Atriple and all that, it's a lot different. And so my drug is actually still cheaper than Stribold, even though hundreds of thousands of people take Stribold and only a few thousand people take my medicine. So
yeah, there's a lot less.
Yeah, Daraprim's price should actually be higher, which would probably make people shit a brick. But it's the reality is I looked at our numbers last quarter. Our company lost money. So if nobody wants this drug ever again, then something's got to change. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It's an interesting situation. I'm okay being victimized or whatever, chastised for it, but it doesn't matter.
The unfortunate face of it.
John Martin from Gilead is a brilliant dude, and his legacy. I think Gilead's legacy is going to be a final cure. I know they're working on it. I actually wanted to work on it too, but after all this pushback, now I'm wondering what I can and can't do. It's terrible. I have a number of ideas on a final cure for HIV that would be a pill that would clear the virus completely, because as you know, with Stribold, you can get to an undetectable level of viral load, which
in a month and a half.
Yeah, that's amazing. But
and actually, I think with infants they were even using PrEP Truvada, and they're able to actually take away the asymptomatic HIV infection in the infants that just don't know why.
Yeah, and so how do we figure out how to kill that last little bit of viral reservoir that lives in some of the T cells? And I've got papers just in my bedroom right there on how to do this. And so does Gilead. They've been publishing left and right on their theories on the cure. They've done so well with the cure for Hep C that I think they were a little lazy when they had Stribold and Atripla and Truvada, and they're like, do we really need to cure this thing? I'm not so sure. But now that, ViiV is definitely coming up pretty strong, with Triumac and their other product. I think there's a race between Gilead, Merck a little bit, and a few other folks to actually get a cure. So I'm excited about it, but there's still a lot of work to do and a lot of misconceptions to push aside. I know this company Merck, they had Icentris, and they raised the price of that huge amount, and the HIV community was pissed. But Merck didn't back down, and again, Merck's still investing in a cure. I don't know that they're going to get there. But it's one of these things that surprised me that no one really cares about the cure for HIV other than like 2 or 3 companies, even though it would be like the most monumental scientific achievement in like decades. So for me as a little kid, I was always fascinated and inspired by an HIV cure. And I thought Daraprim would be a good way to raise money, raising the price of this really cheap, quite frankly. It was, as you know, $20 a pill compared to the modern average of 500 or 1,000. This really cheap drug, just saying, look, let's make this normal price, or even, quite frankly, below normal price. And I'll use that money to do great research, not to fatten my pocket. You see, I've got stuffed animals and a guitar here, not, I'm not, your average, multimillionaire drug CEO.
Except for you do have that one account that was worth like, what, 40 million?
Yeah.
When you... I mean, it's not incidental. I worked for a hedge fund in Beverly Hills and also based out of Chicago. Got it.
Yeah. No, it's okay to make money, but what you do with the money
there's nothing wrong
matters.
with that necessarily, but I think that's not a bad thing that you're not raping pharmaceutical profits as you were being portrayed.
Yeah, no, that's not me. I care about science and research, and that's what I love. And it's a means to an end. I could sell half of my company to some venture capitalist or some hedge fund for 5, 10, 20, 30, $50 million. Then I'm sure everybody in Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto would love that. Yeah, exactly. And I would be, it wouldn't be my company anymore. It'd be run by a bunch of idiots, and before you know it, the company would go nowhere. There are success stories with VCs, but they're far and few between, and I'd rather take matters into my own hands and make sure that I succeed, which, required me to do this thing with Daraprim, fine. But maybe that caused a chain reaction for some other stuff that I didn't like. But at the end of the day, I serve patients and nothing else. And even if I had $1 billion of cash tomorrow, I probably have $1 billion of some stocks that are very liquid, like private companies. But if I had $1 billion of cash tomorrow, my life wouldn't change a bit. I would simply just be back at work, working on new medicines, spending that $1 billion on research.
Awesome. Well, good to know. That was the question that I had, and I apologize for the shit show that I made earlier.
Yeah, sorry about Billy. Can get very emotional.
All right.
Yeah.